So it's been roughly 4 years since the COVID-19 pandemic broke out and lockdowns happened all over the world. Everyone literally shitting themselves because they didn't know what was going to happen in the world. Remember schools being cancelled, everything going online. Schools used to be taking on Zoom calls where literally no one would be paying attention to what's going on in class. When people were literally waking up at 12 a.m. or 1 p.m. and it was socially acceptable and they're literally doing nothing other than playing PlayStation all day. Where parents will be literally freaking out about the virus and checking the news constantly 24/7 to see updates on what's going on with lockdown and quarantine. However, with all the mess going on around the world with COVID, I could definitely say that lockdown football was probably an iconic moment in football and something that we will never ever see again. I'm talking in terms of score lines, the stories that happened as well, the players that just completely popped off during this era as well. It was truly a truly special time that we will probably never get back again in our life. All coupled with no fans in the stadiums and games being played behind closed doors, extra sanitary measures, all these kind of things going on with the COVID-19 lockdown. What really made lockdown football so great? We're going to get into it right now. Let's go back in time. Let's go back to March 2020 when this coronavirus or COVID-19, whatever you want to call it, started becoming serious all over the world. Countries started getting to lockdowns. Schools started getting canceled left, right, and center. And this also eventually translated into football. I remember day by day, players getting infected one by one, managers even starting to get infected, games starting to get called off, leagues starting to get called off. Who remembers the PSG Dortmund game, the second leg in the Champions League round of 16, where that was probably the first game that was played behind closed doors. And it was such an odd time because it was so odd seeing a Champions League game with no fans. Literally no fans in the stadium, and all you hear are players' voices. That's all you hear. No fans, no chants, nothing, just players' voices. That's all you hear. Then obviously lockdown happened. All football leagues around the world were shut off for roughly 2 months. And then who remembers the iconic game when football came back? Borussia Dortmund versus Schalke. Literally every football fan in the world was tuning into this game. Every football fan was watching this game. No matter what team you support, everyone was watching Dortmund Schalke. Not just that game as well. Literally every football fan in the world was watching the Bundesliga for a whole entire month. And literally, before this lockdown happened, everyone was saying it was a farmers league. It was a league that no one would watch. But all of a sudden, for a whole month, everyone was watching the Bundesliga since it was the only league on at the time. This is basically a league that no one gave a shit about. But all of a sudden, for that 1 month, everyone was watching the Bundesliga. I remember people even cheering for teams in the Bundesliga. I remember people even supporting Leipzig just for a month, Dortmund for a month, until their league comes back as well. It was truly a special time. Then again after this as well, a month after the Bundesliga started up, all the other leagues started to come back as well. These all started to get active. Serie A came back. La Liga started up again, and obviously the Premier League came back as well. And oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, it just gets even better. First of all, who could forget the iconic 8-2? The 8-2 slapping that Bayern gave to Barcelona. That result single-handedly started the downfall of Barcelona. That result single-handedly made Messi want to leave Barcelona. And it almost happened, but he ended up leaving next season anyways. But he was on the verge of leaving Man City. If it weren't some financial crisis or something that happened, I forgot what it was, but he was literally on the verge of leaving Barcelona just after that result. Coutinho coming on against his parent club and scoring 2 goals against them to rub it in them and make the embarrassment even worse. Alphonso Davies literally rinsing and ending Nelson Semedo's career. PSG finally making it to a Champions League final after all the billions they spent on crap players and all these stars they've signed. They finally made it to a Champions League final. Neymar was finally fit for a Champions League campaign with PSG. Only for them to go on and lose to Bayern. That too, their academy player that they rejected, who was quote-unquote not good enough for the club, came on and scored the winner for Bayern to win the Champions League against them. What about Bruno Fernandes scoring a goal after the full-time whistle, scoring a penalty after the game ended to win United the game? I remember seeing that for the first time and I thought, like, what is going on over here? Imagine if there were fans during that moment. Imagine if there were fans during that moment. It would have been absolutely mental if that would have happened, if there were fans in the stadium that time. Leicester City scoring 5 at the Etihad. Jamie Vardy dunking on Pep Guardiola. West Brom scoring 5 against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. That too, yeah, with Big Sam in charge. But the best was Jose Mourinho's Tottenham slapping United 6-1. Mourinho sitting there on the bench just laughing like the absolute villain he is watching the downfall of that club. Harry Maguire with some absolute top quality defending that even Sergio Ramos and Paolo Maldini would be proud of. I remember Twitter that day was on absolute heat. So many Liverpool fans crawling out of their caves and bantering United. Bantering United. Only for Liverpool a couple hours later to go on and lose 7-2 to Aston Villa. Yeah. Liverpool really lost. The champions Liverpool really lost 7-2 to Aston Villa. By the way, this Aston Villa team the season before, they just about escaped relegation due to a goal line clearance issue and surviving on the final day. To go on next season and beat Liverpool 7-2. Liverpool, that too, who won the Premier League. Insane. Only lockdown football. Liverpool really do live up to their motto, you'll never walk alone. The scorelines were one thing, but the event that happened in lockdown football were another. Something that we'll never see again. For example, who remembers when Carlo Ancelotti somehow managed to sell James Rodriguez a dream to come to Everton? Man, Ancelotti really sold him a dream, told him that, yo, we're building something in Everton. Just for Ancelotti to leave Everton and go to Real Madrid the next season. And leave Rodriguez with Rafa Benitez. Gareth Bale rejoining Tottenham Hotspur only for him to be completely binned off by Jose, completely disregarded by Jose. Remember Tottenham sacking Jose Mourinho 1 week before cup final and bringing in Ryan Mason and putting him in charge against Pep Guardiola of all managers. Actually, as a matter of fact, as a Tottenham fan, that still haunts me, so let's not talk about that. The Kazoo title race, who remembers that? Who remembers the Aston Villa Everton title race? Where Everton actually scammed us into thinking that they were a good team, only for them to fall off and finish mid-table. Chelsea sacking Lampard mid-season and bringing in Thomas Tuchel to go on and somehow win the Champions League. Who would have thought? Liverpool, the champions, going on a Premier League title defense with a centre-back partnership of Nat Phillips and Reece Williams. I don't even know where they play now. And who can forget Arsenal? Arsenal fans are not getting away with this as well. Remember Arsenal being in December, sat in 15th, 4 points away from the relegation zone. Not to mention as well, lockdown probably gave us the most peak AFTV that I've ever seen. Entertainment after entertainment after entertainment. AFTV kept me going in lockdown.
Mopa, you're an absolute disgrace. You're a cheat. I hope Brighton get relegated.
We're fucking 15th!
It's on the...
We're 15th! We are 15th, sir! Fucking Arteta!
You have!
And fucking him!
You have! You have!
Fucking haven't, man!
You have!
Lastly, who could forget Robert Lewandowski? This man was absolutely robbed during lockdown. This guy was robbed his Ballon d'Or. Having one of the best ever individual seasons ever, winning the treble, scoring a shit ton of goals, breaking all kind of goal scoring records, only for him to get completely robbed of the Ballon d'Or because the French league, the Uber Eats league, was cancelled. That's because they didn't win the Ballon d'Or, because the Uber Eats league, a league that no one gives a shit about, was cancelled. FIFA, just say you don't want to give him the Ballon d'Or. Just say you don't want to give it to him. Lastly, who could forget the players that were balling out under lockdown? Like, lockdown probably gave us some of the absolute best players we've ever seen. Literally, the worst players ever were playing out of their skin in lockdown. And then when lockdown ended, they go back to their old selves. Like, for example, who could forget Dani Ceballos at Arsenal. For the first 3 months of lockdown, my man was playing like Cesc Fabregas. Literally, he was playing like Cesc Fabregas. He was probably one of the reasons why Arsenal won the FA Cup. You have Eric Lamela absolutely scoring a Rabona goal against Arsenal in a North London derby. Imagine if there were fans there. Imagine if there were fans there at the Emirates and they saw that. The audacity. Imagine what would have happened. Oh my God. We were robbed that. Martial, who could forget him? Martial playing like Thierry Henry with the NHS badge on. Every time the NHS badge was on, he was playing like Thierry Henry. You knew he was going to do something. Who could forget the biggest man himself? Who could forget the absolute GOAT, Jesse Lingard? Oh my God. He was probably the biggest highlight of lockdown football. Out of all the things that happened, Jesse Lingard was probably the biggest highlight of lockdown football. Joined West Ham on a 6-month loan. Literally, no one expected anything of that loan. People thought he'd just be rotting on the bench at West Ham. But no, he went there and absolutely killed it. He was dominating the Prem, just slapping up teams for fun, just scoring goals, getting assists, getting GA for fun. Man was out here playing out of his skin. He was playing like the English Ronaldinho. Even scoring an incredible solo goal. Everything, bro. Getting GA for fun, scoring incredible solo goals. He was doing everything, Lingard. He did all that just for him to go back to United, sit on the bench, go to Forest, and do nothing, and now he's in Korea. Imagine if he just stayed at West Ham. Imagine if Lingard never went back to United. Imagine if he stayed at West Ham. He could have been England's best midfielder. So in the end, lockdown football was probably the most mental and the most insane time for football, for fans and clubs in general. Players just playing out of their skin, all these storylines coming through, the score lines that we saw. But as a club, it was probably the most mental and insane thing that ever happened to them. There was literally no stability in the starting 11 during this period. As always, there'd always be someone in quarantine or be sick with COVID, even the manager. So the starting 11 would always be chopping and changing every week. So you can't really put the same starting 11 every week, because one player who played last week could have got COVID and boom, he's out for like 2 weeks. So you have to put another player in. It was so unpredicted that time. However, looking back on it, it was a very odd experience, lockdown. At first I was like, what's going on? But when it ended, it was very excited though, you know, the storylines it gave us, score lines, everything it gave us. It was probably a very exciting time that we will probably never get to see again, or even our children or grandchildren, whatever. I don't think they'll ever see anything like this ever again. So I guess we could say that we got to experience it, you know. So that's a wrap for this video. What do you guys think about lockdown football? Did you guys enjoy it? Did you guys hate it? Did your team suffer because of it? Did your team thrive because of it? Let me know in the comments. Would you want to see lockdown football ever again? If it were to happen again, would you be open to it? Would you not be open to it? Let me know as well. Because if lockdown football were to happen again, you already know I'm putting my seatbelt on and I'm ready for the ride.